enrollments: Thomas Nenka, Chad Parenti, Kevin Reese, Noah Rocha, Tristan Tamalace, Matthew Teixeira, Jaden Terra, and Jesse Wilson.
Thank you, and congratulations to all of you for a job very well done.
We are now going to honor the Mount Hope High School All-State Musicians. On behalf of the school committee and Superintendent Bryce, we would like to congratulate and acknowledge the following Mount Hope High School students who were selected for the 2020 Rhode Island Music Education Association All-State Performing Ensembles. Under the most difficult of circumstances, these musicians spent countless hours preparing and recording virtual auditions. Abigail Bratsos for the Junior All-State Treble Chorus. Liam Reish for the Junior All-State Mixed Chorus. Olivia Bullard for the Junior All-State Mixed Chorus.
Hang on a minute, Mr. Cabral. I don't believe that the clapping is coming through. I see everybody clapping, but I don't hear it.
Well, I can hold to the end and they all can clap. That's what we usually do, Marge.
I know they are clapping now.
Okay. Well,
I just can't hear it.
I haven't hit.
Go ahead.
You want me? Can I continue?
I want you to continue.
All right. By the way, I have to apologize to all of you that I have pronounced your names incorrectly. I'm doing the best I can. Lucian Chidester, Junior All-State Orchestra. Sabella Matheson, Junior All-State Orchestra. Abigail Phoenix, Senior All-State Treble Chorus. Emily Marino, Senior All-State Treble Chorus. Madison Campo, Senior All-State Treble Chorus. Nathan Macedo, Senior All-State Mixed Chorus. Sophia Ferolito, Senior All-State Mixed Chorus. Carter McCausland, Senior All-State Guitar Ensemble. Frank Ferrara, Senior All-State Guitar Ensemble. Hannah DeJesus, Senior All-State Guitar Ensemble. Peter Labonte, Senior All-State Guitar Ensemble. Eva White, Senior All-State Band. Peter Labonte, Senior All-State Orchestra. And Rachel Olette, Senior All-State Orchestra. A special note, 3 high school musicians ranked #1 in the state for their audition and are as follows. Olivia Ballard, #1 alto in Junior All-State Mixed Chorus. Hannah DeJesus, #1 All-State Guitar Ensemble. And Rachel Olette, #1 flute in the All-State Chorus. Anybody want to know?
Amazing, amazing.
All right.
Congratulations to all of you. It's amazing. And I'm really excited for every single one of you out there.
Now, we all know that these people would not be as good as they are if they didn't have the right people instructing them. So the following people, Mount Hope High School Music Ensemble Directors are as follows. Virginia Boyle, Mount Hope High School Guitar Ensemble Director. Christopher Lambert, Mount Hope High School Band Director. And David Loria, Mount Hope High School Chorus Director.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yay!
Now we have another honor, which is a very large honor. In the guitarist school and student, winning the Feinstein Golden Ticket raffle. On behalf of the school committee and Superintendent Bryce, we would like to congratulate and acknowledge guitarist school and the following student on winning the Feinstein Golden Ticket raffle. This student earns $5,000 for guitarist school, $500 to donate to another charity of his choice, and a prize of his own. Congratulations, Liam Donovan, on his amazing news. Now, Liam Donovan is a 4th grade student at guitarist school. And of course, he has a teacher who is Miss Cronin of the guitarist school and the principal, Miss Beth Broman at the guitarist school. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Liam. Thank you very, very much. Dr. Bryce, I believe you had something that you wanted to talk about that was really important.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So we want to bring to everyone's attention and thank someone who is retiring from Bristol Warren Regional School District after 40 years of service. And so I first want to acknowledge, I'm sure she's here somewhere, Miss Mary Almeida. It is an honor to acknowledge the retirement of Mary Almeida and the extraordinary commitment she has made to the Bristol Warren Regional School District over her 40 years of service. Mary began her career in 1980, working for the Warren School Department as a bilingual education teacher. She later worked as a classroom teacher, reading specialist, and she has served as a mentor for numerous teachers, student teachers, and supported the development of new teachers and a legacy of high quality learning within the district. In 2007, Mary was appointed to the position of assistant principal of Hugh Cole Elementary, and then as the director of literacy and Title I in 2009. Her dedication to her profession has been evident in everything that she does through the exemplary job that she's done wherever she's been. In addition, Mary has supported numerous initiatives such as greeting new families to the district through the annual kindergarten orientation and the Title I family engagement events, serving as a reading week coordinator, organizing the annual spelling bee, and also volunteering with the Rotary Club and other community organizations. Mary Almeida is one of the most thoughtful and compassionate people you could ever hope to meet. Throughout her very successful career, Mary has also worked with educational organizations at the state and regional level, serving on statewide committees for the Rhode Island Department of Education, and as a focus facilitator and lab classroom teacher for the East Bay Educational Collaborative. She has also been instrumental in planning and facilitating professional development within the district, sharing her expertise and passion for literacy across our entire community. Over the course of her 40-year career, she has influenced the professional careers of numerous educators and touched the lives of thousands of parents, children, and even grandchildren within Bristol and the Bristol and Warren communities. We are extremely grateful for the many ways that Mary has contributed to the district and wish her a lifetime of happiness in all that lies ahead. Please join me in congratulating Mary Almeida for a job well done, for all the effort and the years she put in to the students and staff and the community of Bristol Warren.
Thank you, Mary.
Mary. Congratulations, Mary.
So I know this is bittersweet, but I think we're going to give you, can we give you 30 seconds?
Finish eating, please, so that we can go. First of all, Dr. Bryce, thank you for all those wonderful, kind words. I do want to make one correction. It's 7 of those years were at St. Elizabeth's School. I then came back. So it's really been 33 and a half years in Bristol Warren, just for the record. But it's been truly a labor of love. I can't tell you, through the years and all those different roles, the people I've met in these two communities, which I think of as one community, I can only say it has been truly an amazing journey, a labor of love, and I will always wish the very best for this district. I welcome the new school committee members, this administration to go forth, and I will miss everyone. I really will. But it's a good time for me. And it's always been a learning curve. It's always leading with and through others. That's my mantra, I have to say. And I've always felt very valued, very supported in this district. So thank you all. And 30 seconds, I think, are up, Dr. Bryce. Thank you.
Thank you,
very much.
For those
Mary.
kind and wonderful
Thank you,
words.
Mary.
I
Yay.
was a little
We love you, Mary.
forgotten some of those things, yes.
Thank you.
Godspeed, Mary.
Marge, can I just say one thing?
Go ahead, Tara.
So I've had the privilege of having Miss Almeida. 3 of my children have had her in 2nd grade. And I will just want to tell you, we just put up every year, she would give her students a
Thank you,
snowman
Stroman.
ornament.
You are loved as well.
And we just put up
Thank you.
all of the snowman ornaments. And I was thinking of you.
Isn't that nice? Thank you, Tara. Thank you again, Mary. All right. Everybody's clapping and I can't hear it. Moving on, we have public comment. Do we have any public comment, Kate? Did I lose Kate? Kate? I don't see any hands raised.
Madam Chair, I don't see any hands raised. We might have to ask if anyone has a public comment to raise a hand.
All right, hearing none, we'll move on to the approval of the school committee virtual meeting minutes. I need a motion.
I make a motion that we accept the motion of the minutes for October 26th.
I need a second.
Second.
All right, for those of you who are new to the committee, you can vote on these minutes if you so choose, but you do not have to. It's just up to you. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. All right, we're moving on. This is what's called School Committee 101. And our,
How about the November 30th?
no, it was both.
Okay, thank you. All right, I didn't know. Okay. Sorry to interrupt.
Well, now we're even,
Okay.
square, right? Before we get to School Committee 101, however, all of you have received in your, should have received today your assignment for subcommittees. So I will read it out here and explain it to you in case anybody has any questions. It's a little different than in years past, and the reason for that is because we have 2 contracts to work on. So on budget, the chair of the budget subcommittee is Sheila Ellsworth. The members are Tara Thibodeau and Nikki Piper. On policy, the chair is Carly Reich. The members are Vic Cabral and Sarah Ballard. Personnel and contracts, the members are myself as chair, Aaron, and Vic. But for the purposes of the 2 contracts that we're going to be negotiating coming up at the beginning of the year, we have 2 separate subcommittees of the personnel subcommittee, and each subcommittee of the subcommittee will be handling one of the negotiations because it's too much for all 3 of us to do both at the same time. So handling the teachers' BWEA contract will be myself, Tara, and Sheila. Handling Council 94 will be Vic, Aaron, and Karen Cabral. The Wellness Committee will consist of Karen Cabral as chair, Carly, and Sarah. Are there any questions? Any issues? Is everybody okay? I asked a few of you to stretch a little, but we all need to start getting familiar with what we're doing across the board. Yes, Mr. Cabral.
Marge, you also have the Student Discipline Subcommittee. I think you at least needed a chair for that, right?
Yeah, and that's me, but we have not had a discipline hearing in a couple of years. So I put that down there. But what happens when we do is that I ask 2 members of the school committee to join me for the hearing. And it's never the same 2 people, so that everybody gets an opportunity to participate. What I'm really hoping is that nobody has the opportunity to participate. But that's how we
You're the permanent chairman, though, right?
correct. I'm the only permanent person on that
All
committee.
right. All right. Thank you very much.
Anybody else? Okay, good enough. Thanks. If you have any other questions or issues or concerns, don't hesitate to contact me or Dr. Bryce, and we'll help you with whatever it is you need. Now we're going to move to School Committee 101, and I'm going to turn it over to our legal counsel, Mary Ann Carroll.
Thank you. And Dr. Bryce, are we all set with the PowerPoint?
We are all set. I believe our tech crew, Crackerjack tech crew, has it all together. And can they start showing that? I don't know if it's Rose or Ryan.
Ryan, looks like Ryan.
Ryan. All right.
Okay, so thank you very much. As you know, at the beginning of every new term for school committees, my law firm goes around to the districts that we represent and does a little School Committee 101 for the new members and a refresher for the members that have served in the past. So for those of you that saw this last year, there's a few changes, but for the most part, it's pretty much the same, and it's the same message that's being done across the state. Actually, some districts even this evening. So if we could go to the next slide, please. Who gives you the authority to be the school committee? I think that's the big question. You run for an office, and quite frankly, you don't know why does that office exist. Well, school committees were created originally by the General Assembly, and you're limited and you're given the power and the authority by both federal and state law. Tonight, we'll be talking about the state statutes that give you this authority, but there are also some federal statutes and some federal law that either gives you power or limits your power. Could we have the next slide? Thank you. RIDE is also given authority by the General Assembly and controls a lot of your actions. So you can't, as a school committee, go out and have any kind of curriculum that you want. You have to follow the curriculum as indicated by RIDE, which is the basic education plan, called the BEP. And you may see us using BEP as you go through the year as to why we do what we do. As the General Assembly promulgates different statutes, there's additional regulations or changes to the regulations that occur usually every year. We get advisory committees opinions from RIDE. We get hearing decisions from RIDE. We get guidance from RIDE. And then some of your authority you get from the duties and the obligations of the superintendent of schools. So quite frankly, you're not, even though you're a school committee, you're controlled by what the law and RIDE tells you can and can't do. Can we bring up these 3 statutes if you don't mind? Okay, so the 3 statutes that we're going to talk about tonight that gives you your general duties are Rhode Island General Law 1629, which gives you the general powers and duties of school committees. Rhode Island General Law 1629.1, which is your code of basic management principles and ethical school standards. And the last one being the general powers of the superintendent. School committees have specific powers, superintendents have specific powers. And what we do in the course of terms is learn how the school committee and the superintendent can work together so that you're a cohesive unit to always do what's in the best interest of the students that you serve. Okay, so this is a big change within the past year. And this is something that school committees around the state are having somewhat of difficulty with. about a year and a half ago now, it was the last year of the General Assembly before the year of the pandemic General Assembly, the law changed regarding who had the authority to make appointments. Prior to a year and a half ago, anybody appointed in the school department, other than the superintendent and the school committee attorney, it was a recommendation of the superintendent, but the superintendent's recommendation had to have the consent and approval of the school committee. So the superintendent could come in front of the school committee, could make a recommendation, and they could say no. The General Assembly changed that. And basically now what happens is for any appointments in the administrative level, principals and the administration, the superintendent makes the appointment. School committees cannot stop the appointment. However, school committees still control the contract. So even though the superintendent may appoint a position, the committee has the authority of the contract. So you can limit some of the appointments by the contract that you're willing to give. Again, this is a very good place where superintendents and school committees need to work together ahead of time. So when the superintendent asks you to approve a contract, everybody is on the same page. The other thing that changed just recently, and that changed in January, but nobody knew about it because we were in a pandemic, in terms of building level positions, now the principals can make a recommendation to the superintendent as to who they want to work in their buildings. Now, the superintendent still has a right to accept or reject that recommendation, but the superintendent cannot hire anyone without a recommendation coming from a building principal. Again, a big change that occurred. I think it went into effect in January. We didn't see a lot of it going forward because the situation we're in right now, there's not a lot of information that we see regarding that change. But building principals will recommend to the superintendent appointments. Now, I'm not going to read to you all of the areas of 1629 because there are actually, within the next couple of slides, 26. But let me give you some of the highlights of 1629. And then obviously you can take and read a lot of these on your own. School committees have the responsibility of the entire care, control, and management of all public school interests. School committees are to provide for and ensure the implementation of federal and state laws. School committees have the responsibility to care and control the local schools. School committees have the overall policy responsibility. In other words, school committees develop and direct policy. It can come from a policy committee and a recommendation of a superintendent, but you control the policies. School committees control the care and management of school facilities. You are in charge of the schools. You are in charge as a school committee to adopt a school budget, and you're the ones that are submitting it to a local appropriating authority. You as a school committee are in charge of adopting any changes to that budget. You as a school committee approve any expenditures in the absence of a budget. And you as a school committee employ a superintendent. You also hear appeals in disciplinary actions. You as a school committee enter into contracts. Superintendent cannot enter into contracts. You as a school committee do that. You as a school committee publish policy manuals. And again, those are the highlights of 1629. There are several others, but you as a school committee member can also read 1629 at your leisure. And if you need a better copy, we can always give you a hard copy of 1629. The next statute that we're going to talk about, if we can go to the next slide. Okay, we can go to the next slide after that. Can we go to the next slide, please?
move to the next slide, please.
Thank you. Okay, I want to take a couple of minutes to go over. No, go back. I think we went too far, but that's all right. 16 to 11 is the duties of the superintendent. And I take the time to go over the duties of the superintendent because I think it's very important that school committees understand that the superintendent is the chief executive officer of the school district.
Ryan, back up one slide, please.
Okay, thank you. So again, not to read every single one of them, but to highlight some of the most important ones. The superintendent's job is to implement the policies that the school committee approves. Superintendent is to recommend educational plans and programs to meet the needs of the district. Superintendent has to comply with federal and state law. Superintendent has to appoint administrators and other personnel that we just spoke about. The superintendent has to prepare a school budget for consideration by the school committee. He or she has to authorize purchases consistent with the budget. He or she is responsible for keeping the records of the school system. And the superintendent is responsible to keep the school committee appraised on a regular basis of the financial conditions of the school system. In many districts, what happens is on a regular basis, there are some regular financial reports that are simply given to you in your packets, so you see how we're doing on budget. And again, he's also responsible to oversee discipline of the school system, to evaluate schools, and to report to you on a regular basis as to what is happening within the school district. Again, you work with the superintendent, keeping in mind that he is your chief executive officer. If we could move on. Next slide. Okay, next slide. Next slide. Next slide. Okay. Rhode Island General Law 1629.1 is your code of basic management and ethical standards. Obviously, as school committee members, and I was a school committee member once too, we have to hold a certain level of principles and we have to follow a certain ethical standard. And that basically is what we're required to do. So again, you as a school committee establish a code for ethical standards for school committees. School committees have policies that they develop on their own and then follow, and every district has their own school committee policy. You as a school committee under 1629.1 ethical standards formulate any written policy. You as a school committee establish and maintain procedural steps for resolving complaints and criticism of school affairs. In other words, you handle grievances, you handle concerns. The one thing you need to understand, and this sometimes is hard, and I failed this on some occasions when I sat on a school committee, is you act through public meetings, and no individual on this committee has any authority to bind the board. So keeping in mind that any individual school committee member has no authority. We work as a team, you work as a committee, and you make decisions as part of the committee. Keeping in mind that your most important position is to worry about and keep in mind the educational welfare of the students in the Bristol Warren Regional School District. And lastly, under this statute, the one thing that I want to emphasize is you always have to avoid being placed in a position of conflict. So, again, we've got to be very careful as we move forward because you are held to a higher professional level than a general person on the street. So you need to always worry or be concerned about the fact that you don't want to have any improprieties or any possible chance that you would be considered of a conflict of interest. again, these are the general laws that rule the school committee. And if somebody would like them on just a hard copy rather than on these slides, we can certainly send them out to you. Next slide, please. Okay, so having gone through all of that I just gave you, let me tell you what your three main responsibilities are as a member of the school committee: policy, budget, and the hiring of a superintendent. Everything that we just talked about falls into one of these three areas, and these are the most important three areas that as you as a school committee are responsible for. Next slide, please. Okay, and again, we're just going to highlight some of the things that I gave you under 1629. You are responsible for policies. You're responsible to make sure that you keep up with policies and changes to policies and make sure that you're in compliance with your policies. Now, part of that is my job to inform you going forward if there's a change we need to make in a certain policy. And my firm does that on a regular basis, but then we're usually updating policies. Sometimes we'll go through a policy manual and we'll find out a policy manual hasn't been updated for the past 10 years, where there are changes, education changes, and in cases we need to change those policies. So that's why it's so important for your policy subcommittee to keep up with the changes that need to be made and to be constantly reviewing policies to see which ones need to be changed. Next slide, please. Okay, budget. I always held out that the most important thing that you can do as a school committee and the most important thing a superintendent can do is make sure that you have a good handle on your budget. So remember, it's the school committee that adopts the budget. It's the school committee that adopts changes to the budget, and it's the school committee that would approve expenditures in the absence of a budget. Again, budget, if you don't have the money, there's certain things you can't do. Now, superintendent, as I explained earlier, you have as a school committee 2 appointments, and the most important appointment of yours is your superintendent. Again, he's considered the CEO of the district. And any concerns and complaints and any issues that you have should always go through your superintendent. It's critical that you find a superintendent that can lead your district into the next century, pretty much, and take care of the needs of the students in your district. Let's keep in mind, and let's never lose sight of the fact that as a school committee, the educational welfare of all of your students is the most important thing that you need to worry about. Next slide. Okay, again, school committee and personnel, keeping in mind that you don't any longer hire personnel, but you're going to be part of the evaluation process, and you're going to be part of any disciplinary action, and you alone enter into contracts. And again, this was a big difference this past year and a big change from school committees in the past. What you used to be able to do, you can no longer do, and now you're in charge of contracts. Okay, some areas of confusion for school committee members. Your greatest concern is the welfare of students. What do you do as a school committee member? The welfare of students is most important, but your job as a school committee member is to filter the concerns and issues of the community through your superintendent. I know that's difficult sometimes when you are first elected to a school committee, and I have to say that I've been guilty of this also. You might think that you need to handle situations, but your best course of action is always to turn everything over to the superintendent, and then he will look into any of your concerns. The welfare of the students is your main responsibility. Let your chief executive officer handle them. And I've said this before, Jonathan, don't get upset because I say this at all my hearings. You work through a superintendent. If you don't like what he does, you fire him, but you can't take any action beyond him. So you go through that superintendent. Now, I gave this presentation in another district last year, and I basically said, if you don't like what she's doing, fire her. Well, she wasn't too happy, but basically that's how you handle issues. You work through your superintendent, you turn everything over to him. He's supposed to be handling the problems. And if you don't like what he does, he's the only person that you can fire. Can we, did you like that, Jonathan?
Yes.
Yes. I mean, that's the truth. That you work through him. And let me also say, before we're talking about the, you need to understand that there's two appointments you have, the superintendent and your school committee attorney. Your school committee attorney works at the pleasure of the school committee. You can fire me at any minute. That's the way it is. We work for you. And the only two people that you actually have the authority to hire and fire is your present superintendent right now and me. So keep that in mind. And so process and due process is important. You're not hiring and firing, but you make decisions on employees. So everybody has a right to due process. And that's why we have to be careful as school committees to understand that we work as a group. You're the final body to determine appeals. And that's why when you receive a complaint, you need to forward it to the superintendent. Because what happens is if you as a school committee member try to investigate on your own, and then the matter comes in front of you, you're going to have to recuse yourself. So I ask you to be cautious, especially for the new people, in trying to get involved with situations. Turn them over to the superintendent. That's why you pay him the big bucks. He's the one responsible for handling these things. Now, one of the things, or three of the areas where you absolutely should not get involved in until it comes in front of you, is the hiring or firing of employees, disciplining student cases. Those would come to you because if student is going to be suspended for more than 10 days, that's a decision of the committee. And if you remember, that's the committee that Marge just talked about, where she would have different members if that happens. And special education cases. Now, special education cases come under federal statute, and there is no appeal that goes through the school committee. Any special education matter, it doesn't even go through the superintendent. Let me also say that. Special education matters go right to a due process hearing, which is organized under the federal law and goes through RIDE. So special education cases never get appealed through the superintendent or through the school committee. Okay, let's talk about dealing with the press. Good luck. You'll all make the mistake once or twice. Try to not make a comment. A very good person once told me, don't say anything if you don't have to. Sometimes you think it's nice to get involved, but sometimes you just need to either let there be a spokesperson or have no comment. I assure you that as positive as you think you're being, everybody's going to get burnt once when they try to go to the press. So I caution you to be careful when if you should make any statement to the press. Next. Okay, so now let me just say that there is nothing illegal about putting anything on social media. It's perfectly legal. However, be careful. Once again, I think that sometimes when we think we're doing a good deed, it may come back to bite us. So my suggestion is to you is think twice before you post on social media. Also be careful about posting something that's going to have a rolling quorum. By that, I mean, if you put something on and then another school committee member comments, and then another school committee member comments, and then another school committee comments, if you end up with 5, you've got a rolling quorum and you violated the open meeting law. So be very careful about what you post on social media. Also, never, absolutely never post anything on social media that's confidential. Quite frankly, that could get not only you, but the entire district in trouble. So when in doubt, don't do it. When in doubt, ask the superintendent or ask me, and I will do my best to help you orchestrate what you should or shouldn't put on social media. Non-confidential material can go on, but just be careful. Confidentiality issues. You are the member of the school committee, not your son, not your daughter, not your husband, not your wife, not your sister, not your brother, not your friend. So anything that's confidential is to be kept with you. Executive session minutes should never be discussed outside the school committee. Personnel matters should never be discussed. Student matters, ADA matters, FERPA matters. These are records of students. Medical records matters. Anything on to negotiations. We usually have ground rules where we come up with ground rules so you know not to discuss it. Legal advice. If I give you advice, you are my client. It's attorney-client privilege, and it should not be shared. And lastly, and we already talked about this, anything under IDEA or special ed matters are confidential. If you violate any of this, you could be personally liable, and we as a district could have to deal with that and end up in a suit because of it. So please be careful. When in doubt, ask the questions. Okay, this goes without saying. Don't be uncivil. Consider asking legal counsel opinions in executive session. We have school committee executive sessions quite often. There's always legal advice. If you have a question, ask in executive session, because it's very likely I'm not going to be able to answer your question in open session. So please think to ask in executive session. Once you get the agenda, and now Maj is getting the agendas and all the backups out to you on Thursday. So if you have a question, try to ask the administrators ahead of time. That way you can ask them again in public, but if you're giving them a heads up that that you have a question, they're going to be prepared to make your answer. And then, go ahead, Jonathan.
So when you said ask the administrators,
I meant the superintendent.
thank you.
And when I mean the superintendent, he may turn you over to one of his administrators, but to the extent possible, go through the superintendent. Does that help you, Jonathan?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I want us to be careful of rolling quorums. I had other districts where we got into trouble about rolling quorums. Rolling quorums is if there's any time when, because you're a 9-member committee, 5 members are discussing an issue. Now, it can very well be 3 members are talking about it, and each of those 2 of those 3 members talk to one other person. That's considered a rolling quorum, and that is illegal. We have to act as a committee in open. We have to be transparent, and we need to be very careful that we don't discuss something amongst 5 of us. 4 of you are okay. You can talk 4, but you can never talk to that 5th person. The other thing is when we at a meeting, we only talk about agenda items. The agenda has to be posted with the Secretary of State's office 48 business hours prior to the meeting. That means since most of your meetings are on Monday nights, the agenda has to be posted by Thursday night. The school committee, which is different than the town council, cannot amend its agenda. So the only thing we can talk about at a meeting is an agenda item that's been put on agenda and posted at the Secretary of State's office 48 hours before the meeting. And again, if we have matters in executive session, we cannot discuss them in any other forum. Okay, let's talk about public comments, because there are always some concerns about public comments. Let me make it clear to you that the General Assembly, in organizing a school committee meeting, made it very clear that a school committee meeting is a meeting in public, not a meeting of the public. You as a school committee are not required to have public comments during meetings. However, it is in everybody's best practice, and most school committees that I know of, it's their best practice to have public comments. But keep in mind, public comments are just that. They are comments from the public. When somebody gets up and makes a public comment, there is no back and forth interaction. Hopefully your public comment, and I know this has happened in the past, is recorded by the superintendent, and that at a later date or the next day, he may get back to the person making the public comment with an answer. But since we don't have that on the agenda, we cannot be discussing topics that come up under public comment. This is not public discussion. It's just a comment from the public. Okay, which way are we going here?
Next slide.
Yeah, let's go. Yeah, we went backwards. Okay, I think that was my last slide. So,
Ryan, that's the last one you've got? Yep.
Yep, it is. Okay.
Marianne, would you be willing to entertain questions from?
I'd be more than willing to entertain questions from the committee, Maj.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Anybody have any questions? If you don't now and you do later, don't hesitate to get a hold of the superintendent or myself or Marianne to get your answers, because we will be more than glad to help you. And I see your hand up, Vic. Yes.
Marianne, I read the legislature, and it says that we could have 15 minutes of public comments. We could set that in 3 minutes per comment. Is that correct?
Yes. As I said, Victor, you're never required to have public comments. So each school district, through their policy, determines how long the public comments will be and how long each individual public comment can be made. So yes, you can limit it to 15 minutes and you can limit it to 3 minutes per comment.
The reason I asked the question, Marianne, is so you tell the public that that's what we can do in the future.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions from anybody? Great. Thanks. Thanks, Marianne.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Marge.
Nick, I see somebody.
Yeah, Nikki, go ahead.
Just a quick question, just to clarify. Did you say that we are not obligated to respond to public comment, or did you say that we may not?
I'm saying that public comments, you may not respond.
Thank you.
Anybody else? We can always come back to it if you have any more questions.
And if anybody has any questions, I mean, you can send them to me and I will get them back to you. Let me make one more comment. If I send something out to you, I am your attorney. It is attorney-client privilege and it is confidential. If you ever have a question on something that I send out to you, you send it back to me individually, not to the entire school committee, because now we've just created a quorum if I then answer you all at the same time. So anytime you have a question, ask it to me individually.
And Marianne, can we give the school committee clarity? Because in your role as the school committee attorney, it's different. But if a school committee member asks me a question, as a matter of practice, I share that with everybody.
Oh, and yes, I share with everybody too, Jonathan, but you share the answers with everybody. But nobody can then have a discussion. 4 or 5 people can't have a discussion of your answers. But yes, you share with everybody. Absolutely. This is an awful lot for anyone that's new to this committee. Again, anytime you have any question, feel free to reach out and I will answer them to the best of my ability.
Actually, I think it's easy to remember that reply all is your enemy.
Correct. Thank you.
Okay, good. Thanks. Any more? We're good. All right. Discussion and possible action. There are 2 items on the agenda for discussion and possible action. We'll take up the first one, which is the approval to advertise for a school committee clerk. All of you have received or should have received the duties of a confidential secretary to the school committee. We had one, and she's no longer with us. But after talking to some of the people in the district, I thought it might be time for us to have another discussion about whether or not we should go there. So what I'm asking you tonight, along with the superintendent, is that we advertise for a part-time clerk whose job would be to represent the school committee. It's a lot of work to keep us all herded in the right direction. And Kate has a lot of work to do as an administrative secretary to the superintendent. I know that Kate has spoken on occasion that it would be nice to have some help. So I'd like to have this discussion tonight on how all of you feel about having that part-time clerk come back onto our staff. Any comments from anybody? Actually, first, let's make a motion. Can I have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve to advertise for a school committee clerk.
Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, now let's have some discussion on how you feel about it. Vic?
Yeah, I think Kate has done a great job, but you can't serve 2 masters. You know, she is the confidential secretary to the superintendent, and she can't be our confidential secretary at the same time. It just doesn't work out well. And I think we need somebody. And the other thing is, we put a lot on Kate. She's done a great job. I think she's a great secretary for the superintendent and for us. But she can't be doing all the work that we're expecting her to do. So that's why I think we should really get someone part-time to take care of our duties. And we used to have that. So that she just took it over because the person was there left and she had to do it. Thank you.
Aaron? Oh, yes, Sarah.
I just wanted to ask, was there a reason that the previous secretary left, or it just happened that way?
It just happened that way.
Okay.
Yes, Carly.
I have a question about procedure. If my recollection or my memory serves me, don't ideas or requests like this normally start in the personnel subcommittee and then is recommended to the full subcommittee with the support of Dr. Bryce?
Yes, if we were actually going to hire somebody, but all we're doing now is posting. Then it goes to the personnel subcommittee for a discussion on the contract. And then it's presented to the school committee in a yes or no. This question simply is, do you believe that it's time to go back out and advertise for a part-time clerk for the school committee? It will be then done the way you were talking about, but this comes first. Yes, Nikki.
Mrs. McBride, I have 2 questions. The first one is that the presentation we heard just said that we are only responsible for hiring 2 people, the superintendent and the attorney. So obviously this would be a third. So I just wondered how that worked. And the other thing was, I don't believe in that information it gave an hourly rate or what we should plan on budgeting for this person.
That's because what Carly talked about in terms of going to the personnel committee is absolutely correct. Personnel subcommittee recommends to the full school committee those kinds of things, salary, hours, etc. The second thing is we would not be hiring this person. Dr. Bryce would be hiring this person. We would have a member of the school committee. We would have some other people on the interview process, people would go through the interview, and then Dr. Bryce would recommend who he thought was the best candidate for the job.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else? Aaron? Aaron?
Oh, I think you got me before my hand even went up.
No, it went up.
Okay. So I noticed on the back of the information that we received this afternoon that it says salary to be established by the school committee. So just for clarity, once again, because everybody has questions about this, we are voting on whether or not to advertise for this based on whether or not we think there is a need. So, and I just want to say that I do think there is a need for this. I do know that other school committees do often, or at least sometimes, have one executive assistant who works for the superintendent and also the school committee. But I feel like in our case, being a regional district and having a school committee of 9, it's a lot of minutes. It's a lot. Other school committees also don't have, some don't have subcommittees. So it is a big time commitment on top of what the superintendent's executive secretary is already doing. So I do agree that there is a need, and just want to clarify that at this point, if we voted in favor to post this position, it then goes to personnel to establish what the salary would be.
No, then we put it out for bid, for as a job.
Mhm.
We'll have people that we need to interview. We'll sit down, the personnel subcommittee will sit down and decide what the parameters are, and we'll present it to the school committee. The school committee has to agree how much money they want to spend and how many hours they want this person to work.
Right, but is that information vetted at the personnel level and then?
Yes.
Right, okay, that's what I'm getting at. Okay, I think that's it. Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, can I have a vote then? All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? The ayes have it. Dr. Bryce, would you mind starting the process, please?
Yes, ma'am.
For,
For posting that assignment.
yes, please. Yes, please. And I'll get back to you in the next day or two as to setting up a meeting for interviews, et cetera, et cetera. How's
Okay.
that?
Thank you.
The second thing on the agenda is an approval of a consultant to conduct a financial analysis of the FY 2021 budget.
I
This
make a
shows,
motion that we have approval of a consultant to conduct financial analysis of FY 2021 budget.
thank you,
Second.
Who seconded?
I second. Sheila.
We haven't had a business manager for a while now, and it's taken up a lot of time from people in our administration to keep the budget straight. And I think I'm just going to say it, I think it's getting a little skewed, and particularly because we have funds coming in from so many different places. And I don't think that we're going to be able to get a new budget director until the end of the school year. So I'd like us to be on a straight course that we can follow, that Joel and gang can follow for the rest of the year. And that was the reason for this request. Mary Ann gave you a short synopsis of what we're looking for. Dr. Bryce has been consulted on it. Would you like to comment, Dr. Bryce?
Yes, Madam Chair. So I would like to remind the members that were here prior to the election and share with the new members that one of the things that we recognize is that this year was going to be vastly different than previous years. With the absence of a permanent full-time budget director, we have Joel Harrington ably filling in as an interim business manager, and he's really working really hard, and we thank him for the service that he's providing. But we also recognize that this year, given the pandemic, there were going to be a host of additional expenditures that the district would have to make in the hiring of temporary personnel. That comes with significant costs, the hiring of or the expenditure of additional PPE, which we are purchasing on a weekly basis, the purchasing of air filters. We also know that we saved approximately $3 million from last year's budget that I shared back in August, that we were going to use those funds in order to help get us through this year. And so we see this as another way of making sure that all of the dollars that we have accounted for are going exactly where we need them, because this year is a really tough budget year. But we also expect that the FY22 budget is going to be maybe more lean than even this year's budget. And so we are approaching this from a perspective that every little bit helps. Every little bit helps us to see exactly what direction we're headed in. And hopefully we will have a template that will be used that will allow the budget process to roll out as smoothly as possible, given that the state may not provide all of their information on a timely basis like we would expect in a normal year. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any questions? Yes, Mr. Cabral.
Just to clear one statement up here, Marge, this is not a hire, is that correct? We're not hiring someone?
The contract.
It's a contract, so there's no obligation for hiring or any other type of situation. It's just, and now I'm reading this right here, and we're looking at a certain amount of money per hour and a certain amount of hours, and that's it. And the only thing that I have a question about is, in the statement that I have in front of me, it says the maximum of 40 hours. What happens if we find out that it has to be more than 40 hours?
Madam Chair, can I answer that?
Yes.
Okay, so Mr. Cabral, we wanted, after I discussed with the chair, we wanted to limit the hours and the amount. So we had a set amount, because as you know, sometimes consultants go on and on and on, but we wanted to know exactly how much it would cost. So we're limiting it right now to a maximum of 40 hours. If the scope is to change, or if the hours were to go beyond 40, or if we see there's a need, then it would have to come back to the school committee for further approval.
Thank you, Mary. That's just what I wanted to hear. Thank you.
Yes, Carly.
I had a question again about how are we going out to bid to find this consultant? What are the parameters of the bid? My other question too is, have we seen the results of the other external audit that was performed earlier? And would this therefore be redundant to that? I just have some questions about that, and also timing. Was that something that you would like to have happen immediately?
Can I answer the question about the audit?
Yes, you may, Dr. Bryce.
So this past week, Joel Harrington, our interim budget manager, Tina Fogel, our chief operating officer, and myself, we actually called our auditors just to get an update on when we could expect a preliminary, because usually they give you the initial draft report and then they finalize it about 3 weeks later. And so we expect that we would receive some draft report from the auditors, and that covers FY20. That does not cover the current budget. It is focused on the FY20 budget and the closeout of that particular fiscal year. We expect to receive that prior to winter break. And then hopefully I would work with the chair, schedule an opportunity for the auditors to come in and speak to the school committee and present like they did last year.
Okay, thank you.
Sheila.
Yes, just to answer also to answer Carly's question, the auditors are actually not here to do like a deep dive. They do more of it's a requirement for RIDE, and they do more of a analysis, like a sample analysis for the prior year for 2020. So for 2021, the scope of work that we're trying to get them, or we're asking the consultant to do, is to kind of look at all of our budget areas, go through go through our budget, go through our fund balance, go through our balance sheets, and also help with finding cost efficiencies. So that will put us in a better position for 2022 budget, because we need to find efficiencies, as Dr. Bryce had said, and this consultant can actually go and help us find best practices that are happening across all districts that maybe we haven't also thought of, which we can leverage. Any amount of money that we can save obviously goes directly back and helps our kids. So this consultant can actually help us, and the timeline is we're kind of coming right up against 2022. So we need to clean up 2021, get efficiencies, get back to best practices, so we can leverage 2022 to have a better, cleaner budget number and budget presentation to our two towns and our taxpayers.
We have to do the budget. We have to present it to joint finance in March.
Mhm.
Time is passing quickly. And so, yes, I am most definitely concerned that we do it sooner rather than later, but it's still at the pleasure of the committee as to when or whether they want to do it. You're simply getting my opinion on this one.
I still was wondering about the bid process for locating said consultant.
Can I?
Yes.
Let me address that.
I
So
think, Sarah, just a second. Yeah, go ahead.
is that all right? So Carly, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hire the consultant. It's going to come through legal, because if you have a deficit, it's going to be a quite an interesting, that would take on another whole legal issue. So that's one of the reasons we kept it under $10,000. We have just an $8,000 limit. And basically, the consultant will be hired through me. And then from that point, we'll move forward. We limited the amount of money so that we were okay. And it's basically going to be a consultant that legal is using to look at your budget.
Okay, I'm gonna think about that. I know there's another question bouncing around in my head somewhere, but I will circle back when it manifests in a clearer.
There's plenty of time. Sarah, you had a question.
Yeah, I just wondered if there's going to be a set due date for them, seeing as we have to present the budget to the Joint Finance Committee in March.
Can I answer that?
Yes, please.
Okay,
That's a very good question.
so the issue is the person that I have in mind is a chief operating officer, CPA, that is extremely familiar with school departments. And she's well aware of the fact that you have a new budget coming in March. So I think the goal here is to get her in, get her the documents, and get her working as soon as this committee approves it tonight. So I would think that if the school committee approves it tonight, she can be gaining documents and meeting with Dr. Bryce and Tina as soon as possible, possibly even tomorrow. The person is extremely knowledgeable of school budgets, school deadlines, and knows what you're up against.
Thank you.
Did that question show up, Carly? Did you?
I'm still processing, but I'll get back. Thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions or comments? Yes, Nikki.
In theory, I am always a big fan of having as many sort of checks and balances in place and having as many external experts sort of look at books and look for cost efficiencies, et cetera. But in practice, it can sometimes be tricky, especially as these consultants are often hired because of sort of short staffing issues. So I know that we're not talking huge money, which is great if we truly think we can get this done for that money. But has anyone thought about if our business office has the capacity to work with this consultant in that sort of super tight time frame that we have?
Dr. Bryce, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, so I think it's actually a really important question. We would, based on whatever the school committee decides, I certainly will make my staff available. I will meet with the individual so that the individual has all of the materials that they request, and then that gives them the opportunity to perform the analysis as quickly as possible so that we can get a finished work product. I don't know how long that will take, but I can tell you that the folks in Oliver work some pretty long hours, and we will find time to work with that individual to give them the materials that they need, if that is the school committee's decision, so that we can move forward with this.
Does that answer your question, Nikki?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Bryce. I definitely have some concern because obviously everybody seems to be sort of tapped out, but if you believe that it can be done, Dr. Bryce, then.
Yeah, and so I think if the answer is, are people stretched to their capacity? I think as a district, we are in the midst of dealing with the pandemic, dealing with staffing issues, dealing with the normal operations of schools, absolutely. But I also recognize that if the school committee makes a decision, right? Mary Ann spoke earlier about the school committee working as a team, working with the school superintendent, and that's what we will do. We will find a way to get the information and get it done. Does it add something else to our plate? Absolutely. But we will find a way to get it done if this is the decision of the school committee.
Thank you.
I think also, Dr. Bryce said in the long run, at least in my opinion, it will clean your plate of some things as well. And it will make it easier for you to make it through the rest of the semester with the template that you talked about. And it will make it very comfortable, hopefully, for you to prepare the budget for joint finance and to be able to move forward next year. So while it might be a short-term couple of hours for each person, in the long term, if a template is made, then all they have to do is refer to that template when they're adding and subtracting and doing things with the money. So I don't want to be penny wise and pound foolish in that respect. Yes, Nick. Yes, Mrs. Piper. Nikki? No.
I'm good, thank you.
Anybody else? Yes, Erin.
Thank
Erin?
you, Madam Chair. Just had to unmute there. So I am fully in favor of having a financial analyst come in and do this work. I think it's smart to do this and prudent. My question just lies with, I guess I heard the answer, but I'm just not clear on why the consultant is to be hired through legal counsel. I heard that it's in case there's a deficit, but I'm not sure I quite understand that angle. And I'm wondering if this is typical, I guess. And my other question is, I think the only thing I'm uncomfortable with here is the process, because what I'm used to is that these things would go to the budget subcommittee, be vetted there. They would look at different financial analysts, people or companies, and then, get these proposals from them. Oftentimes there are different levels of what they can do for different amounts of money. And then the school committee members would be able to see clearly, like, what exactly the job is that's going to be done, how long it's going to take, how much it's going to cost, and then generally the subcommittee would, in vetting it, determine which of those analysts we would go with and bring that recommendation to the full school committee with an explanation of why. And so I just don't have any of that information with the way this process went. And so that is where my question lies. I don't know if it's for the chair or for legal counsel or both, but I guess if because everyone's just kind of looking at me, the question is, why are we doing the process in this way and just going with one person without having looked at others who could provide the same service? And why, again, is it going through legal counsel?
I can, if Madam Chair, if you don't mind, I'll
No,
answer it. All right. So my firm's been involved in 2 audits. One was in the East Greenwich School Department a couple of years ago. They actually went out to bid and got no bidders. And then I was given the task of doing it. And basically, I basically had almost an open book in terms of what I needed to bring in to get it done. The same thing happened in Warwick, where they needed to do an audit. And not only it's hard to find these people, they're few and far between. The person that I've spoken to the chair about bringing in is actually the person that did the East Greenwich financial piece for me. And when we got to Warwick, this person didn't have the time, and we couldn't get anybody. So I suspect that if you went out to bid, you'd get no bidders, and then we'd be begging people to come and do the job. This is something where you need somebody who's extremely knowledgeable of budgeting and school budgeting. And my firm's hired these people in the past, so I'm comfortable in hiring the person through my office. It is different, but what I can tell you is that we beg to find people to come in and do this kind of work, because it's such a limited expertise. So yes, is it different? Absolutely. And why are we doing it now? Because in discussions with the chair and then the superintendent, if we can he does not have a finance director. I don't know how he's done as well as he's done to this point. He and his staff and Tina putting things together to kind of keep this budget together. I'm hoping that this person who comes in will, as I said, look everything, give suggestions, and then put a template almost in place going forward until he can find a finance director. I think everybody that's been on the committee knows what he's been through for the past year in trying to find a person. He's lucky that he has an interim right now, but these people are so that you need somebody with expertise, and it's very difficult to find. So again, this person is going to help out until Dr. Bryce is successful in finding a finance director that can totally handle this budget, so that his staff no longer has the work that they're having trying to do it.
Aaron, I understand your question about process and procedure. And you're absolutely correct that under normal circumstances, we would go out to bid for somebody and we would vet it through budget and facilities. But we should have started our budgeting process for next year in October, and we haven't started it yet. And it's due in 3 months. There is some necessity of action here. We won't even start to have subcommittee meetings until January. The subcommittees will not be able to report back to the full committee before February. the person that they recommend, if there's somebody to recommend, won't get started until February, and the budget is due in March. So rather than, in the absence of having enough time to go to the subcommittee, I think it's important that we go to the entire committee and that the entire committee make the decision, because in the end, that's what happens even when you have a recommendation from the subcommittee. So that's why it's sitting in front of you now, as opposed to what we would normally do in process and procedure. And I'm going to stop because Dr. Bryce has his hand up.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I just wanted to clarify. We actually have begun the budget process for FY22. Schools are working with a draft template that we have provided them. That information is due to my office on the 18th. We know that we have to get a draft document of a budget, much as our legal counsel mentioned, that a group of us are working on that. And we know that we are required by policy to get something to you, we believe, on or before January the 15th as an initial draft. So we have begun that work. So I just want to be clear. I think where I am supportive of this effort is in the fact that if there is someone that has done this work, right, as Mary Ann Carroll has mentioned, that really has significant expertise that can come in and can help us to see those places where maybe we have not identified efficiencies, as Mrs. Ellsworth has mentioned. I think that is a benefit to us. We know that next year is going to be an extremely very tight budgetary season. And so any help that we can get that helps Joel, who's doing a really good job and working really hard, and Tina and myself and the other staff and the building principals, I think we welcome that. It is going to be time consuming, but if we're going to strike, I think right now we're probably in that window.
Now, I didn't mean to make anybody believe that you haven't done any work. I know you've been working on it. I know you've started working on it. I know you've approached school principals and others looking for their budget. I'm just worried about the time, and I'm worried we are going not to meet. We're going to meet next Monday, and then we won't be meeting until January. And we have 4 new members on the school committee. It's a lot to understand a budget and why you've made choices that you've made that you have to present to us for us to agree to. And the more time that they have to understand what it is you're doing and where you're going, and for them as a school committee to be able to indicate to you where they might like to go and things that they'd like to see done, I think we need the time. And that's, unless anybody else has any other comments, which I welcome, we'll take a vote. Yes, Aaron. I see you, Jonathan. Aaron?
Yeah, I just had one follow-up question. So because I'm used to the process where it would go through budget subcommittee first, I'm used to seeing different rates. So I just want to be assured from someone who identified this financial consultant that this is a competitive hourly rate.
Mary Ann?
Quite frankly, I think we're getting a deal. And we're getting a deal because the person is so familiar with budgets and education and school districts.
Thank you, Mary Ann.
Jonathan, did you have something you wanted to say?
No, ma'am.
Well,
Dick?
can we take a vote?
Carly?
Thank you. I just want to say it plainly so that anybody that isn't quite picking up the pieces, want to say it plainly. So what we're doing, or so I can understand as well, is that we're allowing or having Mary Ann go through her office so that we can circumnavigate the normal channels in the name of expediency. Is that correct? Am I understanding this?
No,
Okay.
no, and I don't think that's a fair representation of what we're trying to do.
Well, I'm not saying that I'm not suggesting in any way that it's unscrupulous. I'm just trying to understand that since we are in a hurry, that we're doing it a different way, not in a legal way. That's not what I'm suggesting at all. Just a different way than we normally do so that we can get this done, so that we can look at the numbers and feel like we're in a good spot going forward for the budget.
We can do that, or we can ask Dr. Bryce to do that. We're doing it as a full committee, not as an individual. It can be done legally one of two ways. It can be done through Mary Ann's office, and it could be done through Dr. Bryce's office. If your pleasure is to do it through Dr. Bryce's office, we can do it just as easily as we can through Mary Ann's. There's no, nothing's being hidden. This had been discussed before.
Oh, I'm not suggesting that. I was just trying to understand it in a little simpler way. That was just trying to distill it so that I could kind of share.
May I add something, Mrs. McBride?
Yes.
So Carly, I mean, it can definitely go through Dr. Bryce, but since I'm familiar with so many school districts in the state, I wanted to find somebody who is at the top of her game so that I knew that anybody I brought in could get it done in the least amount of time, look at the district and make suggestions if necessary, and hopefully be able to say everything looks good. I just want the comfort of knowing that I am finding somebody good, and I'm telling you, I'm bringing in one of the best business people in education in the state of Rhode Island. So it can definitely go through Dr. Bryce, and a consultant doesn't need to, it's not like you're hiring. As you've known in the past, Dr. Bryce has taken opportunities to bring in consultants when he felt that there were needs in different areas. So I have no problem at going directly through Dr. Bryce, but I just felt that I knew this position and the people that do this better because I've been around a lot longer, than the superintendent. And I wanted to find something that would help and not hinder, that would solve problems if they exist, and would understand the difference between federal money, CARES Act, things like that. So I wanted, when I was approached and asked, I needed to find somebody that's the best in the business. And I was able to talk the person into agreeing. And believe me, I think she's somewhat doing me a favor. And I have no problem. I mean, I can tell you that I would trust her in any school district. That's why it's kind of coming through me, because I wanted somebody good. I don't want somebody to come in here and embarrass anybody. I don't want somebody to come in here and look for problems or look for issues. I wanted somebody to come in here who needed, who knew what they were doing and would just be helpful. And I think and I want to say again, the reason that people question the budget in Bristol Warren is because you haven't been able to find a finance director, and it's becoming a lot for the staff that you presently have.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, you make a very good point, Mary Ann, about contracts versus hiring companies. And with that, I would ask all in favor.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
That aye is,
You might want to do a roll call, because I don't know.
I don't know who said, who objected. Did anybody object? All right. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Next week, we have some deadlines that Dr. Bryce needs for us to hit. Plus, we have to do the bus contract because it wasn't quite ready for tonight. So hopefully it'll be a quick meeting. No presentations, just the business that we need to do before we break for vacation. The other thing is that we will keep you all up to date on the contract. Yes. We'll keep you up to date on the contract and where we are with this school committee clerk. So has anybody got anything else they need to ask? Otherwise, I'd ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it. Good night, everybody. We'll see
Good
you next
night.
week at
Good
7
night.
o'clock.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Night.